Hi everyone and welcome back to our channel. Because last week and a couple of stories ago we were on the whole satanic wavelength, I thought today we would continue with another story related to that topic. We have spoken about the Michael van Ack case, and last week we spoke about the Krugersdorp killers. So like I said, staying on that theme, today we are going to talk about another case that took place in Krugersdorp, but this case is incredibly bizarre because it was done by a young boy and he blamed it on the music that he listened to and that the music just spoke to him and that's why he did it. But I'm getting ahead of myself, enough babbling from me, let's get into today's case.
Intended for mature audiences only.
Morne Harmse was 18 years old at the time that this incident occurred. He was known to be a little rough around the edges, a little aggressive at times, but otherwise just a typical teenage boy in some instances. Morne was described as shorter than most of the boys in his grade. He was also very thin and he had a very baby face. Morne later would also claim that he was harshly bullied at school, and a lot of kids would make fun of his small stature or his height, and that really triggered him later on in life as well. And we know how cruel some kids can be. Some kids might see it as, oh, I'm just playing with you, but sometimes it can be quite mean and quite hurtful to other kids. According to Morne, he would also say that his father was incredibly strict and he liked things a certain way. Morne would also say that his father on multiple occasions would hit him, beat him, and his mom would also pipe up and say that his father did cross the line on multiple occasions. With Morne's father being a very strict disciplinarian, it was said to have quite a lasting effect on Morne and really affected him in his later life. Morne's dad was quite well built, he was quite tall, and he was a very strong man. Morne's mom struggled a lot with her mental health and she did try and end her life on several occasions. Morne's mom had also been hospitalized for a period of time after a mental breakdown that she suffered. So if this is all true about what happened in Morne's childhood, the bullying, his father beating him, his mom's mental health issues, there was not a lot of time placed on Morne, and he said that he felt often very isolated from everyone. And sometimes people can just get wrapped up in their own lives, and sometimes people go through things themselves and they don't really have the mental capacity for anybody else. That being said, Morne obviously needed this attention and he was not getting it from his parents. There was one article that I read where it said that Morne would often have his door locked and he would never let his parents inside his bedroom. And I found this interesting because if his dad was such a strict disciplinarian, then why would he have let Morne have his way with his door being locked? Surely if his dad liked everything in order and in certain things, he wouldn't let a teenage boy tell him how to run his own house, if that makes sense. So just a little bit conflicting, I think. Morne also said that he was very interested in becoming a ninja one day. He loved the physical bodies of ninjas, how active and how strong they were, and also just their lifestyles. So Morne would often partake in parkour, jumping off walls and buildings and high places, and he was just driven to be a ninja one day. So with that all being said, let's get into the fatal day that happened in Krugersdorp in 2008. On Friday the 15th of August 2008, Nick Deirdre's Technical High School was hosting a casual day. Not only were the boys and girls just having fun in their casual way, they weren't in uniform, they were messing around, but also during some of Morne's classes, and in one class particularly, the class were just having a discussion because all the children were in matric, and in matric it's your last year of high school, and the teachers were just having a discussion about what these kids would do after they left school. And the principal would later say that the answer that Morne gave was very disturbing to some of the teachers, and he actually upset some of the teachers. When it was Morne's turn to explain to the teacher what he was going to do after school, he just blatantly said to the teacher that he's not prepared for his matric exams, and he didn't think that his parents had faith in him at all to even pass the exams. So for him, he felt that it was better to be in jail because he felt that it was better to be a bum in jail than a bum on the streets. And that was kind of the mental state of Morne at the time, and it's quite sad, especially from such a young man. But before we go further into the story, let's skip back a week. So a week before the casual day, 18-year-old Morne Harmse was sitting with 6 of his school friends and they were just having a casual discussion, but then the discussion just turned into, guys, we're leaving, we're going through matric now, what happens when we leave? And these boys were kind of just having a discussion of what they were going to do once they leave and what legacy they were going to leave at the school, because they wanted to make sure that the school had a lasting impression of them. So like I said, a lot of his, if not all of his friends were in matric. They were in their last year and they were heading to their final exam. So I think this was just adding pressure on who they were going to be, what type of men were they going to grow into. And it's not known who was the first boy to bring this topic up in conversation, but they started to talk now about how they were going to launch an attack on the school. But later on in the case, and even during the trial, all the boys would turn on Mornay and they would say that it was all Mornay's idea to launch the attack on the school. So now we go back to the casual day, now that I've planted that Easter egg in your head. Back at the casual day, Mornay rocks up at school in a white top and jeans, and in his hands he was busy carrying a mask, and not the mask that we wear nowadays, but it was a mask that was worn by a heavy metal band called Slipknot, and Slipknot would generally change up their mask, I think, with every album. So this particular mask was brown and it had dreadlocks, and it was referred to as the maggot mask. And on this casual day, Mornay had an exact replica of this mask because he was a huge fan of the band Slipknot. So the boys would have their fun at school. They were laughing, they were chatting with all the girls, and they were just having a fun time. But during lunchtime, they would continue this conversation of how they would make a mark and a lasting impression at their school. And the topic changed very quickly from how they would just have an impression to how they would have a traumatic mark left on the school. The boys then spoke about how they would bring guns to the school because they wanted to commit an attack that was similar to an attack that happened at a school shooting in America in 1999. And these boys were all obsessed with it. They knew exactly what happened at the school shooting and they knew all the details down to a T. And then the boys started to discuss exactly, like I said, what weapons would be used, but then who would use what weapon and what would be carried out. So some of the boys were talking about the firearms that they would bring, and then another boy discussed how he would make a bomb and bring it to school. Mornay then said that he would bring his samurai swords or his knives, and he would also bring 3 different Slipknot masks. And Mornay was just being kind and considerate here because he said, no, the boys who don't have access to weapons or bombs, they can use my knives and my samurai swords. And this attack was now scheduled for the Monday, the 18th of August. Cell phone records show that Mornay continued the discussion with his friends over the weekend, and in these text messages, police found words such as massacre, bloodbath, and these were all used to describe the upcoming events on the Monday. Mornay was also in constant contact with a boy who apparently was making the bomb. He kept asking him, are you sure you can be ready by Monday? And the guy was like, yes, don't worry, I'm on track, don't stress. So then Monday, the 18th of August arrives, and Mornay gets up really early for school. He packs his bags and he heads out the door. And Mornay's mom found this quite strange because she always takes Mornay to school because he has a younger brother who attends the same school. But his mom thought, ugh, teenagers, it's fine, just let him go, do what he wants to do. Mornay was wearing his uniform, but he also had a very big red bag with him, which contained 3 swords, a small knife, a sword belt, 3 masks, knee guards, elbow guards, gloves, and black face paint. And one of the masks that were in this bag was also one of the masks that Mornay wore on the Friday, the casual day. And the other mask was like a gas mask, and then the last one was a clown mask. Mornay just casually walks into school with all of these weapons in his bag. He's so calm, and he actually sees one of his friends quite close to the front gate, and they start talking. And his friend asks him, why do you have all these knives in your bag? Are you mad? And Mornay just responded casually, I bought it for the plan that we had from Friday. The other friends then started to join and they started talking about the plan. And then Mornay sees his friend who was supposed to make the bomb. So Mornay asks his friend for the bomb and the guy hands it over and he says to him, don't pull the string, the bomb's gonna go off. So Mornay, in front of all his friends, takes the bomb, pulls the string, and his one friend panics. He grabs the bomb, throws it, and the thing doesn't go off. And Mornay then just looks at his friend who was supposed to make it and he's like, oh, so you were kind of playing me kind of thing. He was not very impressed with his friend making him a fake bomb. So the boys say they just laughed it off and they kept chatting, and then they decided to go somewhere secluded to have a look at Mornay's knives. So the boys then go somewhere where no one else is. They have a look at the knives. They're looking at them, swinging them around. And Mornay is under the impression that everyone's game for this plan that they had. But as soon as the bell rings, all the boys put the swords back in his bag and they head off to the assembly that was due for that morning. So Mornay was now left alone, realizing that he's the only one who was serious about this plan. And instead of just backing off because he's now a lone wolf, he decided, no, he's going to go ahead with this massacre plan. So Mornay sits down, he pulls on his elbow guards, his knee guards, He puts black face paint on his face, he puts his gloves on, and then he puts his slipknot mask on. Mornay then puts on his sword belt and he puts the small knife and one of the big swords in the back section of the sword belt. He then is armed with a massive samurai sword. Mornay then emerges around the corner where some school kids are standing and they all start laughing at him because they think that this is some weird prank that he's trying to pull. But sadly, Mornay's intentions would be shown as very clear because a young 16-year-old boy named Jacques Pretorius was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And even though Mornay had no cooking clue who Jacques was, sadly their paths had to cross that day and it ended very badly for Jacques. One of the last things that Jacques Pretorius heard that day was Mornay calling out to a group of matric girls saying, "Hey, you want to see something cool?" Mornay then drew back his sword and he hit Jacques in the side of the neck, hitting his carotid artery. Jacques collapsed on the floor with blood gushing everywhere out of his neck. He was trying to grab at his neck, but he instantly became weak. Jacques' best friend was walking with him at the time, and he said that he thought that Mornay was just joking, but when he looked on the floor and saw that there was just bubbles of blood coming out of his friend Jacques, he realized quickly that he was in incredible danger, and so was his best friend. Jacques' best friend tried to put his hands over Jacques' injury, but he realized by looking at Jacques' eyes that he had already passed on. So sadly, this young boy had to watch his best friend die in front of him. Jacques Pretorius was 2 years younger than Mornay at the time, so he must have been in grade 10. Now, there were people around Mornay, so they obviously saw what happened and pure chaos erupted. There were students running everywhere and Mornay had no care in the world about what was happening. What Mornay had just done to Jacques didn't affect him in the slightest, and he just continued to walk through the hallways of his school until he came across another boy, a 17-year-old boy named Stefan Bowers. Stefan was struck at the back of the head and with an incredibly deep gash, which he would have to go through intensive surgery to repair, but luckily he did survive. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, 2 groundsmen appeared who, instead of running away from everything, they tried to stop Mornay and to try to tackle him. One of the groundsmen's name was Sam Manamela, and another groundsman's name was Joseph Karasan. These 2 men ran towards Mornay. They tried to tackle him, but Mornay was already swinging. Sam received an incredibly deep cut in his arm, and Joseph had his ear almost severed off of his head. It was just hanging. But then just as quickly as this horrific rampage began, it stopped. Mornay just stopped his rampage. He just walked over to a small wall. He sat on the wall and he threw his sword into the sand. It was then said by witnesses that Mornay's younger brother then approached Mornay. He then grabbed his sword and he ran away. And some people believe that Mornay saw his younger brother and that's why he stopped. But while Mornay was sitting there, one of the teachers then walked up to Mornay and he said, "Hey, listen, you need to come with me to the principal's office." Mornay then took off his slipknot mask and he just looked so confused, apparently. He said that he wasn't really aware of what happened, but he walked to the principal's office. Once he was sitting down and after some water, the principal then asked Mornay, "What happened? Why did you do this?" And Mornay just said, Satan told him that if he didn't kill people that day, that he was going to be killed, so he had to do it. Police and ambulance were called almost instantly and they did arrive to the school. However, Jacques Pretorius unfortunately passed away on the scene. Stefan, Sam, and Joseph were all taken to hospital where they were treated for their wounds, and they all made a full recovery physically. Mornay was then arrested on the spot. Witnesses of that day said Mornay looked absolutely possessed. They said he may have been on drugs because his pupils were dilated, and he was just behaving so erratically and so panicky, almost that he had no idea what was happening around him. Mornay was tested for drugs, but it came back negative. But Mornay was charged with 1 count of premeditated murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. And as police started to get the ball rolling on the investigation and evidence was being collected, the rumor mill started exploding. When police searched Mornay's bedroom, they found a lot of things that were, I guess, related to the occult. This included Ouija boards, ceremonial candles, pentagrams, a set of tarot cards, mini cigarette lighters, rolls of packing tape, and this Ouija board that was found was actually drawn by hand on a piece of cardboard with the words saying ja and nee on each side, which is just yes and no in Afrikaans. Police also found detailed drawings of the entire school's floor plan and a list of set instructions and who would do what on the day of the massacre. Mornay was sent to a juvenile psychiatric facility for 30 days so that he could go under psychiatric testing, and also to determine whether Mornay was fit to stand trial or not. The psychologist who was assigned to Mornay said that he was very confused by Mornay's mental state right in the beginning. He said that Mornay was displaying some features of psychosis. However, he said that in general, Mornay didn't have the hallmarks to be suffering from any mental illness that would lead to psychosis. So during the entire assessment, Mornay would keep bringing up that he kept seeing ghosts, he kept seeing black figures at night, and he was scared by these figures. And while Mornay was being evaluated, his mom was allowed to visit as well as his dad, but his mom would say that Mornay was a troublemaker, he was a naughty boy, and she was concerned for a long time from his childhood that he was going to be a criminal. Mornay's mom said that he was often involved in petty theft crimes and he was often very aggressive. So after the 30 days at the psychiatric unit and after being assessed, the psychologist who was assigned to Mornay deemed that Mornay was faking his entire psychosis. And when the psychologist confronted Mornay about being fake and about faking everything, he admitted that he was just trying to make sure that he wouldn't get into any more trouble. And the psychologist said that Mornay was one of the most manipulative and cunning people he had ever met. Mornay was found fit to stand trial and to aid in his own defense. The judge then asked whether he would enter into a plea deal, and he accepted it and pled guilty to all of the crimes he was accused of. And at the pre-sentencing hearing, the psychologist who had assessed Mornay throughout his 30 days testified completely about Mornay's mental health. He told the court that Mornay had admitted to be using drugs weeks before the crime actually took place, but he made sure not to take drugs the weekend before the crime so that his system would come out clean. The psychologist felt that Mornay had an emotionally younger age than his physical age, and he said that because of the violence that Mornay had received as a child, it really and severely affected him as an adult, and it had taught him to become emotionless and aggressive. And the psychologist said that Mornay admitted to him that he really wanted to bash his dad's head in, but he decided against it because his dad was bigger, stronger, and probably would take him out if Mornay tried fighting against him. Then, in September 2009, Mornay was sentenced to 18 years imprisonment, and the judge during this whole sentencing accepted the fact that Mornay was mentally younger for his age, and because of this he said that Mornay did not meet the minimum requirements for a full sentence for life, but he was sent to an adult jail. There were articles saying that Mornay was deemed to be released in 2019 and that he's going to be released anytime soon because technically he has served half of his sentence. But there are also articles stating that psychologists think Mornay is not ready to be released, and even if he is, he has to be under strict surveillance for quite a while after he's released because he has to be released so slowly back in society due to his mental state, and that he's probably not ready to experience such a change in the normal world now. So I do find this case quite interesting in the sense that there were a lot of occult items under his bed, and that he said that he was clearly influenced by Slipknot and the music that he was listening to. However, I do think that millions of people, if not billions of people, listen to music. And I'm sure that 98% or 99% of these people don't go around murdering someone. So I was influenced by music with a pinch of salt. And I do 100% agree that music can affect your moods, but I wouldn't take it that far. I think that if you are already in that state of mind of wanting to do something, certain words that people say can affect if you do it or don't do it. And it is definitely our choice whether we do something or we don't. But with regards to the whole Satanic Panic in Krugersdorp, the Krugersdorp area obviously experienced the Satanic Panic in 2008 as well as maybe 8 years later in 2016 with the Electus Padius group. But I think that the media is so quick to jump on the Satanic Panic because they think that it's interesting, it'll grab headlines, it brings about a lot of mystery and interest. And yes, I think Mornay was definitely involved in some sort of paranormal something. But I also think that Mornay was experiencing something a lot deeper than just a satanic panic kind of thing. It was possibly Mornay's mental state or Mornay's mental illness that led him to do what he did. Or does it bring about the age-old question, are kids born killers? Let me know what you think down below. I hope you have a great week further. Please stay safe, don't talk to strangers, and I'll see you again next week. Bye.